Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this reading of Theogony by Hesiod. Hesiod was a poet in the ancient Greece around the same time as Homer, who wrote the epics, as you'll remember, of the Iliad and the Odyssey as well. He lived most likely in Boeotia, and he has a different and distinct, unique style to that of Homer. I prefer Homer's epics. I'll be honest. And there is debate and confusion surrounding the nature of the authorship of the two works that Hesiod has written. He has written Theogony, which we'll look at today, and also the Works and Days. And it seems most likely that he did not write Works and Days, although there is arguments in the academic realm for both. I will also be doing a blog post on Theogony in the near future, so please go on over to www.timkdunn.com and look at the blog there. You'll see historical and theological posts that cover a vast range of Christian doctrine and interesting biographical personalities from history, critical battles in history, and varying myths as well as other sermonettes and stuff like that. So you'll find a lot of that over in the blog at timkdunn.com. I'm going to just read through it. I'm not going to have any specific interpretation. I'm just going to read it as it is. It follows the translation by, if I can remember correctly, his name I've forgotten, I can't see it, by Dorothy Vender. It's the Penguin Books classic version. So we'll be looking at Theogony and working our way through. It is in a nice unrhymed iambic pentameter, so it follows that stress unstressed structure. So this is the story of the rise of the gods of Olympus, one of the most captivating narratives in the ancient Greek canon, as it were. There are plenty of stories about Zeus and Hera and Aphrodite and Ares and all the other Greek gods and the Olympians, and even the demigods such as Achilles afterwards and things like that. But of all the great narratives, there are very few in my mind that captivate the thoughts and the processes of thinking like what this should be. And unfortunately, Hesiod does not give us the greatest time spent thinking about it. He tends to move very swiftly on. And so although I think he's a contemporary of Homer, he's definitely a novice in comparison with the great epic writer that is Homer. However, nevertheless, he does present the theology in a different way, in a much more helpful way than Homer does. They're doing different things, of course, but we see some of the theology of the worldview of what the ancient Greeks believed. Particularly, we'll notice how creation started, how Gaia and Uranus became the fathers of the the parents of the Titans. The Titans, in turn, Kronos and Rhea, became the parents of the Olympians. Or at least some of the Olympians, should we say. There are names in here, and I'll be going through it at a regular reading pace, so if I get the pronunciation incorrect, that's my fault. I apologize for that. But the whole narrative is the creation story of the Grecian worldview in the ancient world, things that the Apostle Paul would have engaged with to some degree, although by then it was much more Romanized. But nevertheless, this is a very real worldview that was very truly believed. The great thinkers, great philosophers of our era truly believed, or at least gave lip service to the belief in the Greek Olympian pantheon. And you can see more about the pantheon of the Greek gods in my blog as well in timkdunn.com. So please do flick over there afterwards, and let's get into the reading of Hesiod's Theogony, the story of the beginning of the cosmos and the rise of Zeus, aegis-bearing Zeus. Hesiod writes, "With the Heliconian muses let us start our song. They hold the great and godly mount of Helicon, and on their delicate feet they dance around the darkly bubbling spring, and round the altar of the mighty Zeus. They wash their soft skin in the horse's spring, or in Permessus or Olmius, then dance fair and graceful on the mountain top and whirl their feet about. Then they rise up wrapped in a mist and go at night to him with lovely voices, aegis-bearing Zeus and Lady Hera of Argos, she who goes on golden sandals, and the maid grey-eyed Athena, daughter of aegis-bearing Zeus, Phoebus, Apollo, Artemis, who delights in arrows, and Poseidon, he who shakes the earth and holds it. Themis, much revered, and Aphrodite, flirting with her eyes. Golden-crowned Hebe, fair Dione, then Leto and crooked Kronos, Iapetos, Eos, great Helios, bright Selene, Gaia, and mighty Ocean, and that last black night, and all the other immortal gods who live forever, all that holy race. The Muses once taught Hesiod to sing sweet songs while he was shepherding his lambs on holy Helicon. The goddesses Olympian, daughters of Zeus who holds the aegis, first addressed these words to me: "You rustic shepherds, shame! Bellies you are, not men. We know enough to make up lies which are convincing, but we also have the skill when we've a mind to speak the truth." So spoke the fresh-voiced daughters of great Zeus, and plucked and gave a staff to me, a shoot of blooming laurel, wonderful to see, and breathed a sacred voice into my mouth, with which to celebrate the things to come and things which were before. They ordered me to sing the race of blessed ones who live forever, and to him the Muses first, and at the end, no more delays, begin. We start then with the Muses, who delight with song the mighty mind of Father Zeus within Olympus, telling of things that are, that will be, and that were, with voices joined in harmony. The sweet sound flows from mouths that never tire. The halls of Father Zeus, the thunderer, shine gladly when the pure voice of the goddesses is scattered forth. The echo spreads to snowy Olympus's peak, and the immortals' homes. Then sending out unearthly music, first they celebrate the august race of firstborn gods, whom earth bore to broad heaven, then their progeny, giver of good things. Next they sing of Zeus, bore to broad heaven, then their progeny. The father of gods and men, how high he is above other gods, and how great in strength. Next the Olympian Muses, daughters of Zeus, who holds the aegis, sing the mighty race of giants, and they please the mind of Zeus. The goddess who protects Eleuther's hills, memory bore them in Pieria, to the father son of Kronos, and they bring forgetfulness of evil, rest from pain. Far from the other gods, counselor Zeus entered her holy bed and lay with her 9 nights. And when the proper time arrived, the months declined, and the seasons came around, and many days were finished, she gave birth on snowy Olympus, not far from the peak, to 9 like-minded daughters, whose one thought is singing, and whose hearts are free from care. There on Olympus are their lovely homes, their polished dancing floors. And next to them, Desire and the Graces have their homes and live in happiness. With their sweet voice, they praise the laws and courteous ways of all the immortals, uttering their lovely sounds. They went once to Olympus, reveling in their sweet voice, their heavenly song. Black earth echoed around the singers. Lovely noise rose from beneath their feet as they went up to their father. He had become the king in heaven and held the thunder and bright lightning shaft, for he had beaten his father Kronos by force, and now divided power among the gods fairly, and gave appropriate rank to each. So sang the Muses of Olympus, 9 daughters begotten by almighty Zeus, Cleo, Euterpe, and Melpomene, Thalia, Erato, and Terpsichore, or Terpsichore, depending on your pronunciation, Polymnia, Urania, and most important one of all, Calliope, for she attends upon respected lords. And when the daughters of great Zeus would bring honor upon a heaven-favored lord, and when they watched him from being born, they pour sweet dew upon his tongue, and from his lips flow honeyed words. All people look to him when he is giving just judgment uprightly, and speaking with assurance, he can stop great quarrels sensibly. Wise lords are wise in this. When public harm is being done to the people, they can set things straight with ease, advising with soft words. And when a lord comes into the assembly, he is wooed with honeyed reverence, just like a god, and is conspicuous above the crowd. Such is the Muses' holy gift to men. The Muses and Apollo, he who shoots from far away, bring minstrels to the earth, and players on the lyre. Lords are from Zeus, and he is lucky whom the Muses love. His voice flows sweetly from his mouth, and when a man has sorrow newly on his mind, and grieves until his heart is parched within, if a bard, the servant of the Muses, sings the glorious deeds the men of old performed, and hymns the blessed one, Olympian gods, at once that man forgets his heavy heart, and has no memory of any grief. So quick the Muses' gift diverts his mind. Hail, daughters of Zeus, give me sweet song to celebrate the holy race of gods, and live forever, sons of starry heaven and earth, and gloomy night and salty sea. Tell how the gods and earth arose at first, and rivers and the boundless swollen sea, and shining stars and the broad heaven above, and how the gods divided up their wealth, and how they shared their honors, how they first captured Olympus with his many foals. Tell me these things, Olympian muses, tell from the beginning, which first came to be. Chaos was first of all, but next appeared broad-bosomed earth, sure standing place for all, the gods who live in snowy Olympus's peak, and misty Tartarus in a recess of broad-pathed earth, and love most beautiful of all the deathless gods. He makes men weak, he overpowers the clever mind and tames the spirit in the breasts of men and gods. From chaos came black night and Erebos, and night in turn gave birth to day and space, whom she conceived and loved to Erebos. And earth bore starry heaven first, to be an equal to herself, to cover her all over, and to be a resting place, always secure for all the blessed gods. Then she brought forth long hills, the lovely homes of goddesses, the nymphs, who live among the mountain clefts. Then, without pleasant love, she bore the barren sea with its swollen waves, Pontus. And then she lay with heaven and bore deep whirling Oceanus and Koios. Then Creos, Iapetos, Hyperion, Theia, Rhea, Themis, Mnemosyne, lovely Tethys, and Phoebe, golden crowned. Last after these, most terrible of sons, the crooked scheming Kronos came to birth, who was his vigorous father's enemy. Again she bore the Cyclopes, whose hearts were insolent, Brontes and Steropes, and proud-souled Arges, those who found and gave the thunder and lightning bolt to Zeus. They were like other gods in all respects, but that a single eye lay in the brow of each, and from this they received the name Cyclopes, from the one round eye which lay set in the middle of each forehead. Strength and energy and craft were in their works. Then Uranos and Gaia bore 3 sons, mighty and violent, unspeakable Kotos and Gaius and Briareus, insolent children, each with 100 arms on his shoulders, darting about untouchable, and each had 50 heads standing upon his shoulders over the crowded mass of arms, and terrible strength was in their mighty forms. And these most awful sons of earth and heaven were hated by their father from the first. As soon as each was born, Uranos hid the child in a secret hiding place in earth, and would not let it come to see the light, and he enjoyed this wickedness. But she, vast earth, being strained and stretched inside her, groaned. And then she thought of a clever, evil plan. Quickly she made grey adamant, and formed a mighty sickle, and addressed her sons, urging them on with sorrow in her heart. My sons, whose father is a reckless fool, if you will do as I ask, we shall repay your father's wicked crime. For it was he who first began devising shameful acts. She spoke, but fear seized all of them, and none replied. Then crooked Cronus, growing bold, answered his well-loved mother with these words, Mother, I undertake to do the deed. I do not care for my unspeakable father, for he first thought of shameful acts. He spoke, and giant earth was glad at heart. She set him in a hiding place, and put into his hands the saw-toothed scimitar, and told him all the plot she had devised. Great heaven came, and with him brought the night. Longing for love, he lay around the earth, spreading out fully. But the hidden boy stretched forth his hand, in his right he took the great long jagged sickle. Eagerly he harvested his father's genitals and threw them off behind. They did not fall from his hands in vain, for all the bloody drops that leaked out were received by earth. And when the year's time was accomplished, he gave birth to the Furies and the giants, strong and huge, who fought in shining armor with long spears, and the nymphs called Meliae on the broad earth. The genitals, cut off with adamant and thrown from the land into the stormy sea, were carried for a long time on the waves. White foam surrounded the immortal flesh, and in it grew a girl. At first it touched unholy Cythera. From there it came to Cyprus, circled by the waves. And there the goddess came forth, lovely, much revered, and grass grew up beneath her delicate feet. Her name is Aphrodite among men and gods, because she grew up in the foam, and Cytherea, for she reached that land, and Cyprogenes from the stormy place where she was born, and Philomedes from the genitals by which she was conceived. Eros is her companion. Fair desire followed her from the first, both at her birth and when she joined the company of the gods. From the beginning, both among gods and men, she had this honor and received this power. Fond murmuring of girls and smiles and tricks, and sweet delight and friendliness and charm. But the great father Uranos reproached his sons and called them Titans, for he said they strained in insolence and did a deed for which they would be punished afterwards. And night bore frightful doom and the black care, and death and sleep and the whole tribe of dreams. Again, although she slept with none of the gods, dark night gave birth to blame and sad distress, and the Hesperides who, out beyond the famous stream of Oceanus, tend the lovely golden apples and their trees. She bore the destinies and ruthless fates, goddesses who track down the sins of men and gods and never cease from awful rage until they give the sinner punishment. Then deadly night gave birth to Nemesis, that pain to gods and men. And then she bore deceit and love, sad age and strong-willed strife, and hateful strife gave birth to wretched work, forgetfulness and famine, tearful pains, battles and fights, murders, killings of men, quarrels and lies and stories and disputes, and lawlessness and ruin, both allied and oath, who brings most grief to men on earth when anyone swears falsely knowing it. And Pontus's firstborn child was Nereus, that honest one, the truthful. The old man is called this name because he never errs, and he is gentle and remembers right, and knows the arts of mercy and the law. Then Pontus and earth produced great Thaumas, proud Phorcys and Ceto, and her lovely skin, and Eurybae, and with her heart of steel. And Nereus and Doris, lovely-haired daughter of Oceanus' circling stream, begot and bore in the unfruitful sea their children, most beloved of goddesses, Crotho, Eucrante, Scio, Amphitrite, Eudor, Thetis, Gelene, Glauce, and Chemotho, Speo, and Quickthalia, and lovely Pasitheo, Erato, and Eunuche, and her rosy arms, and fair Melite, Eulemene, Agave, Doto, Proto, Feruse, Dynamene, Nasia, Actaia, Protomemedea, and Doris, Panope, and the beautiful Galatea, and the lovely Hippothoe, rosy-armed Hipponoe, Kidmodite, who, acting with trim-ankled Amphitrite and Cimatologe, easily can still waves on the misty sea and calm the blasts of raging winds. Chaimo, Aeone, and garlanded Halimede, the one who loves to laugh, Glyconome, and next Pontoporie, and Leagore, Euagore, Lamonidea, and Polone, and then Althoneo, Lysianassa, and Urine, lovely shaped, perfect to look at, graceful Samathe, Minipe, Naso, and Eupompe. Next, Themisto, Pronoe, and Nemertes, whose mind is like her deathless father's. These are the 50 daughters of blameless Nereus, and they as well are skilled in perfect works. And Thaumas took Electra for his bride, deep-flowing Ocean's daughter, and she bore swift Iris and the Harpies, lovely-haired Aiello and Ocepet, who fly on their swift wings as fast as birds or breath of wind. High through the air they hurl themselves, and Ceto bore to Phorcys the fair-eyed child Graea, grey-haired from birth, whom gods and men who walk on earth call grey ones. Pomfredo, well-gowned, and Enu with yellow robes, and the Gorgons, they who lived beyond the stream of famous ocean on the edge near night, where the clear-voiced Hesperides are found. Their names were Steno, and Euryale, and Medusa, she who suffered painfully. Her sisters were immortal, always young, but she was mortal, and the dark-haired one lay down with her among the flowers of spring in a soft meadow, and when Perseus cut off her head, great Chrysoare sprang out, and Pegasus, the horse who was so called because his birth was near to ocean springs, Chrysaeris, name comes from the golden blade he held when he was born. And Pegasus flew from the earth which nurtures sheep, and came to join the immortal gods. And there he lives in the house of Zeus, and brings the lightning shaft and thunder to wise Zeus. But Chrysaor lay with a child of ocean, Calorho, and fathered Geryon, who had 3 heads. The power of Heracles killed Geryon in sea surrounding Eurythia, near the shuffling cattle. On that very day, the hero drove the broad-browed cattle home to holy Tyrians, and crossed Ocean's ford, and killed the herd Eurytion, and the dog Orthios, in the dark stalls by Ocean's stream. She bore another monster terrible in a hollow cave, Echidna, fierce of heart, nothing like any mortal man, unlike any immortal god, for half of her is a fair-cheeked girl with glancing eyes, but half is a huge and frightening speckled snake. She eats raw flesh in a recess in the holy earth. Down there she has a cave of hollow rock, far from the deathless gods and mortal men. There the gods gave a famous home to her, and gloomy Echidna keeps her watch down there under the ground among the Armoi, a nymph immortal and ageless all her days. They say that Typho, terrible and proud and lawless, loved this nymph with glancing eyes, and she conceived and bore fierce progeny. First, Orthos, the dog of Geryon, and next unspeakable Cerberus, who eats raw flesh, the bronze-voiced hound of Hades, shameless, strong with 50 heads. And then again she bore the Lernaean Hydra, skilled and wrong, the one the goddess white-armed Hera raised, who was immensely angry with great Heracles. With warlike Iollas' help, and through the plans of Athene, she who leads the host, the son of Zeus, Amphitryon, Amphitryon, dispatched the Hydra with his ruthless sword. She bore Chimera, who breathed awful fire, 3-headed, frightening, huge, swift-footed, strong, 1 head a bright-eyed lion's, 1 a goat's, the 3rd a snake's, a mighty dragon head. Noble Bellerophon and Pegasus caught her, but she, subdued by Orthos, bore the deadly Sphinx, a curse on the men of Thebes, and the Nemean lion, a plague to men, brought up by Hera, the lady wife of Zeus. She set down in the Nemean hills to live, destroying the tribes of men. And he subdued Nemean Tretus and Apasis. But he was conquered by the power of Heracles. And Keto joined in love to Phorcys, bore her youngest child, a frightful snake, which guards the golden apples in that secret place of the dark earth at its great boundary line. And these are Phorcys and Keto's progeny. Tethys bore whirling rivers to her mate, Ocean, the Nile, Alpheus, and the deep eddying Eridanus, Strymon. Then Meander, Ister's lovely flowing stream, and Phasis, Ratius, and the silver pools of Achelias, and Nasus, Rhodius. Then Haliacmon, Heptoporus, and Granicus, Aesopus, bright Simmias, Peneus, Hermus, gentle Caicus, Sangarius the Great, Parthenius, Ladon, Eunice, and Aldescus. Last, she bore Scamander, shining holy stream. And she bore daughters, holy progeny, who with the rivers and Apollo, Lord, have charge of young men all over the earth. For Zeus appointed them to do this work. Peitho, Admete, and Ianthe. Next Electra, Doris, Primno, and divine Urania, and Hippo, Clymene, Rhodia, Calaho, Zeuxo, and Clute, Idua, and Pasithoe, Plexior, Galaxior, and the loved Dione, Melabosis, Thoe, fair Polydore, Cercaeus with lovely shape, and Pluto with her wide eyes, Perseus, Ianere, Acaste, Xanthe, and the sweet Petrea, Menestho, Europe, Metis. Next, Euromene, Telesto, yellow-robed, and Crasis, Aze, lovable Calypso and Eudore, Tyche, and Amphyro, and Okuro, and Styx, who was the most important one of all. These are the oldest daughters who were born to Oceanus and Tethys, but there are many other besides them, Oceanids, 3,000 nymphs with shapely ankles who are scattered everywhere over the earth and on deep water, glorious goddesses. There are as many roaring rivers too, children of Ocean, Lady Tethys' sons. It is hard for mortal man to name their names, but they are known to those who live nearby. And Thea, mastered by Hyperion, bore Helios, the great bright Selene, and Eos, who shines upon all men on earth. and on the deathless gods who hold broad heaven. Eurybe, the shining goddess, joined in love with Creos, bore to him the great Astraeus, Pallas, and Persis, greatly wise. And with the god Astroeus, Eos lay, in love a goddess herself, and bore the winds with mighty hearts, the cleansing Zephyrus, and Nautos, and great swift Boreas, and Erigeneia brought forth after these the star Eosphorus, and the stars which shining make a garland for the heavens. Then Pallas slept with Ocean's daughter Styx, and bore him shapely ankled victory and glory in his house, and famous sons, power and force. They have no house apart from Zeus, nor any seat nor any path except where God commands them, and they sit forever at the side of thundering Zeus. Styx, Ocean's deathless daughter, planned it so. The day the lightener of Olympus called to great Olympus all the deathless gods, and said, whichever of the gods should fight with him against the Titans would not lose his honors, but would keep the rights he had among the deathless gods up to that day. And those, he said, who under Kronos had no rank nor rights would be promoted now to rank and honors both, as would be just. And deathless Styx came to Olympus first, and brought her children as her father advised. Zeus gave her honor and unequal gifts, for she was made the great oath of the gods. Her children always live at Zeus's side as he promised. Zeus fulfilled his vows to all, and he rules greatly and is Lord. And Phoebe came to Coeus' longed-for bed. Loved by the god, the goddess conceived and bore Leto, the dark-robed, always mild and kind to men and deathless gods. Gentlest in all Olympus from the beginning, she was mild. Then Phoebe bore renowned Astere, whom Perseus led, a bride to his great house. Last she bore Hecate, who above all is honored by the son of Kronos, Zeus. He gave her glorious gifts, a share of earth and of the barren sea. In starry heaven she has her place, and the immortal gods respect her greatly. Even now, when men upon the earth, according to the rites, make handsome sacrifices and entreat the gods for favor, Hecate is called. Great honors follow readily that man whose prayers the goddess graciously receives, and she can give him wealth, that power is hers. Of all the children earth and ocean bore, who once had privilege, she kept her due. The son of Kronos never did her harm, nor did he snatch away the Titan gods of old. She kept her privilege in earth and sea and heaven, as it was apportioned to her from the start. Nor does she get a lesser share because she had no brothers to defend her rights. Her share is greater. Zeus is her advocate. Help and success come to her favorites. In court she sits beside respected lords. In the assembly of the people, he whom she has chosen shines. And when men arm for man-destroying war, the goddess helps the men she wants to help, and eagerly brings victory and glorious fame to them all. A splendid ally in the games when men compete, then, too, she brings success and help. The man she favors wins by might and strength, and gains the lovely prize with ease and joy, and brings his parents glory. She is good to stand by horsemen, also good for those who work the rude grey sea, and those who pray to Hecate and to the god who shakes the earth with crashes get great hauls from her, the glorious goddess, if she wishes it. But just as easily she takes away all she has given if she wants it so. And she is helpful in the stables too, along with Hermes, to increase the stock. The herds of cattle and of goats and flocks of woolly sheep grow numerous from few, if she is willing, or grow small from great. Thus, among all the honored, deathless gods, she is revered, although her mother bore no sons. The son of Kronos also made her nurse and overseer of all the young who from that day were born and came to see the light of dawn, who sees the world. And thus she is in earth, and these are her high tasks. Andrea, being forced by Kronos, bore most brilliant offspring to him: Hestia, Demeter, golden-slippered Hera, strong Hades, who has his home beneath the earth, the god whose heart is pitiless, and him who crashes loudly and who shakes the earth, and thoughtful Zeus, father of gods and men, whose thunder makes the wide earth tremble. Then, as each child issued from the holy womb and lay upon its mother's knees, each one was seized by mighty Kronos and gulped down. He had in mind that no proud son of heaven should hold the royal rank among the gods except himself. learned from earth and starry heaven that his destiny was to be overcome, great though he was, by one of his own sons, and through the plans of mighty Zeus. Therefore he never dropped his guard, but lay in wait and swallowed down his children. Rhea suffered endless grief. But when she was about to bring forth Zeus, father of gods and men, she begged the earth and starry heaven, her parents, to devise a plan to hide the birth of her dear son and bring the fury down on Kronos for his treatment of his father and his sons, whom mighty, crooked Kronos swallowed down. They heard their daughter and agreed, and told her all that fate would bring upon the king Kronos and to his mighty-hearted son. They sent her to the fertile land of Crete, to Lyctus, when she was about to bear her youngest child, great Zeus. And in broad Crete, vast earth received the child from her to raise and cherish, and she carried him with speed through the black night and came to Lyctus first. She took him in her arms and hid him deep under the holy earth in a vast cave on thickly wooded Mount Aegeum. Then, to the great Lord, the Son of Heaven, the past King of the gods, she handed, solemnly all wrapped in swaddling clothes, the giant stone. He seized it in his hands and thrust it down into his belly, the fool. He did not know his son. No stone was left behind unhurt with undefeated, who would conquer him with violence and force and drive him out from all his honors and would rule the gods. The strength and glorious limbs of the young lord grew quickly, and the years went by, and earth entrapped great clever Kronos with shrewd words, advising him to bring his offspring back. His son, by craft and power, conquered him. And first he vomited the stone which he had swallowed last. At holy Pythos, Zeus set firm the stone in broad-pathed earth, beneath Parnassus in a cleft, to be a sign in future days for men to marvel at. He freed his uncles from their dreadful bonds, the sons of heaven. His father foolishly had bound them. They remembered gratitude and gave him thunder and the blazing bolt and lightning which before vast earth had hid. Trusting in them, he rules both men and gods. And Clymene, the lovely ankled nymph, daughter of ocean, married Iapetos, and went to bed with him and bore a son, strong-hearted Atlas, then notorious Menoetos, and then Prometheus, brilliant and shifty. Epimetheus, the foolish one who brought harm to men who live unbred, for he took woman in. The manufactured maiden, gift of Zeus. Far-seeing Zeus cast proud Menoetos down into Erebos. He struck him with the smoking thunderbolt, because he was insanely bold and reckless in his pride. And Atlas, forced by hard necessity, holds the broad heaven up, propped on his head and tireless hands, as the earth, at last the ends of earth, in front of the cedar-voiced Hesperides, for Zeus, the counselor, gave him this fate. Clever Prometheus was bound by Zeus in cruel chains, unbreakable, chained round a pillar, and Zeus roused and sat on him an eagle with long wings, which came and ate his deathless liver. But the liver grew each night until it made up the amount the long-winged bird had eaten it the day. Lovely Alcmene's son, strong Heracles, killing the eagle, freed Prometheus from his affliction and his misery. And Zeus, Olympian, who rules on high, approved, so that the fame of Heracles the Theban might be greater than before upon the fruitful earth. He showed respect and gave the honor to his favorite son. And angry though he was, he checked the rage he felt against Prometheus, who dared to match his wits against almighty Zeus. For at Mycenae once there was a test, when gods and mortal men divided up an ox. Prometheus audaciously set out the portions, trying to deceive the mind of Zeus. Before the rest he put pieces of meat and marbled inner parts and fat upon the hide, and hid them in the stomach of the ox. But before Zeus the white bones of the ox, arranged with skill, hidden in shining fat. And then he spoke, the father of gods and men, and said to him, "My lord, most famous son of Iapetos, the shares you've made, my friend, are most unfair." Thus Zeus, whose plans are everlasting, spoke and criticized. But sly Prometheus did not forget his trick, and said, "Most glorious Zeus, greatest of all the gods, you live forever. Choose your share, whichever one your heart leads you to pick." He spoke deceitfully, but Zeus, who knows undying plans, was not deceived, but saw the trick, and in his heart made plans to punish mortal man in future days. He took the fatted portion in his hands and raged within, and anger seized his heart to see the trick, the white bones of the ox. And from this time, the tribes of men on earth burn on the smoking altars white ox bones. But Zeus, gatherer of clouds, enraged, said, Son of Iapetus, cleverest god of all, so, friend, you do not yet forget your crafty tricks. So spoke the angry Zeus, whose craft is everlasting. From that time he bore the trick in mind and would not give to wretched men who live on earth the power of fire which never wearies. The brave son of Iapetus deceived him, and he stole the far-reaching ray of unwearied fire, hid in the hollow fennel stalk, and Zeus, who thunders in the heavens, ate his heart, and raged within to see the ray of fire, far-seeing among men. Immediately he found a price for men to pay for fire, an evil for the famous limping god, molded from earth the image of a girl, a modest virgin, through the plans of Zeus. Grey-eyed Athene made her belt and dressed the girl in robes of silver. Over her face she pulled a veil, embroidered cleverly, marvelous to behold. And on her head Pallas Athene set a lovely wreath of blossoms from spring grasses, and a crown of gold made by the famous limping god, worked with his hands to please his father Zeus. Upon it many clever things mortal men and gods to see the hopeless trap, deadly to men. From her the race of womankind, the deadly female race, and tribes of wives who live with mortal men and bring them harm. No help to them in dreadful poverty, but ready enough to share with them in wealth. As in the covered hive, the honey bees keep feeding drones, conspirators in wrong, and daily, all day long, until the sun goes down, the workers hurry about their work and build white honeycombs, while those inside in a shelter storeroom fill their bellies up with products of the toil of others. Thus, women are bad for men, and they conspire in wrong, and Zeus, the thunderer, made it so. He made a second evil as a price of fire, man's blessing. If a man avoids marriage and all the troubles women bring and never takes a wife, at last he comes to miserable old age and does not have anyone who will care for the old man. He has enough to live on while he lives, but when he dies, his distant relatives divide his property. The married man who gets a good wife suited to his taste gets good and evil mixed, but he who gets one of the deadly sort lives all his life with never-ending pain inside his heart and on his mind. The wound cannot be healed. It is impossible to hoodwink Zeus or to surpass him, for Prometheus, the son of Iapetus, kind though he was and wise, could not escape his heavy rage when he was bound by force with heavy chains. When Uranos was angry with his sons, Cottus, Gaius, and Briareus, at first he bound them up in cruel bonds, because he envied them their looks and size and overwhelming masculinity. He made them live beneath the broad-pathed earth, and there they suffered, living underground, farthest away at great earth's edge. They grieved for many years with great pains in their hearts. The son of Cronos and the other gods whom fair Rhea bore to Cronos took Gaia's advice and brought them back to light. She told them everything. The gods would gain glorious pride and victory with the help of those whom they had saved. For Cronos' son had long been fighting, laboring in pain against the Titans in a violent war. From tall Mount Othrys came the Titan lords, and from Olympius those who gave us all, whom fair-haired Rhea bore, after she lay with Cronos. They had anger in their hearts and fought continually for 10 full years with no release nor end to the harsh strife for either side. The winning of the war was balanced evenly between the two. But when the sons of Uranos received fittingly nectar and ambrosia, which the gods themselves consumed, their spirits rose proud in their breasts. And then the father of the gods and men spoke to them, Hear me, glorious sons of Uranos and Gaia, while I speak as my heart tells me to. For many years the sons of Cronos and the Titan gods have been at war, fighting for victory and power. Come now, show them your great strength, your unapproachable hands in painful war against the Titans, and do not forget our kindness and goodwill, how through your plans you came back, having suffered to the light from gloomy darkness and from painful bonds. He spoke, and blameless Cottus answered him, You do not need to tell us what we know. We know your mind and thoughts are excellent, and that you keep the gods from chilly harm. O Lord and Son of Kronos, we came back from gloomy darkness and from cruel bonds because of your intelligence. We find an unexpected end to suffering. Now, with our minds intent and eager hearts, we will preserve your power in dreadful war against the Titans on the battlefield. He spoke, and all the gods, givers of gifts, applauded him and lusted for the fight, even more than before. And on that day they joined in hateful battle, all of them, both male and female, Titan gods and those whom Kronos sired, and those whom Zeus had brought to light from Erebos, beneath the earth. Strange, mighty ones whose power was immense, each with 100 arms darting about, and each had 50 heads standing upon his shoulders over the crowded mass of arms. They stood against the Titans in the grim battle, with giant rocks in their strong hands, while on their side the Titans eagerly strengthened their ranks, and both at once displayed the mightiest efforts which their hands could make. The boundless sea roared terribly around, the great earth rumbled, and broad heaven groaned, shaken, and tall Olympus was disturbed down to its roots when the immortals charged. The heavy quaking from their footsteps reached down to Tartarus, and piercing sounds of awful battle and their mighty shafts. They hurled their warring missiles, and the voice of both sides shouting reached the starry sky, and when they met, their allalay was great. Then Zeus no longer checked his rage, for now his heart was filled with fury, and he showed the full range of his strength. He came from heaven and from Olympus, lightning as he came. Continuously from his mighty hand the bolts kept flying, bringing thunderclaps and lightning flashes, while the holy flame rolled thickly all around. The fertile earth being burnt roared out, the voiceless forest cried and crackled with the fire. The whole earth boiled, and oceans, streams, and the unfruitful sea. The hot blast reached the earthborn Titans. Flame unspeakable rose to the upper air. The flashing brightness of the thunderbolt and lightning blinded all, however strong. The awful heat reached chaos. To the ear it sounded, to the eye it looked as though broad heaven were coming down upon the earth, for such a noise of crashing might arise if she were falling, hurled down by his fall. Just such a mighty crash rose from the gods meeting in strife. The howling winds brought on dust storm and earthquake, and the shafts of Zeus, lightning and thunder and the blazing bolt, and carried shouting and the battle cry into the armies, and a dreadful noise of hideous battle sounded, and their deeds were mighty, but the tide of war was turned. Until that moment they had kept it up continually in the long, hard fight. Among those god who made the fighting harsh, foremost were Cottus and Briareus and Gyes, who loved war insatiably. With their strong hands they hurled 300 rocks in quick succession. With their missiles they overshadowed the Titans, put them down in everlasting shade. Under the earth broad path they sent them, and they bound them up in painful chains. Proud though the Titans were, they were defeated by these hands and sent to misty Tartarus, as far beneath the earth as earth is far beneath the heavens. An anvil made of bronze falling from heaven would fall 9 days and nights, and on the 10th would reach the earth. And if the anvil fell from earth, would fall again 9 days and nights, and come to Tartarus upon the 10th. A wall of bronze runs around Tartarus, and around this runs a necklace triple thick of purest night, while up above there grow the roots of earth and the barren sea. There, in misty dark, the Titan gods are hidden in a mouldering place. Lowest and last of giant earth by the will of Zeus, who drives the clouds, and they may never leave. Poseidon set bronze gates upon the place, and all around it runs the wall. There live Gyes, Cottus, and Briareus as faithful guards for ages, bearing Zeus. And there in order are the ends and springs of gloomy earth and misty Tartarus, and of the barren sea and starry heaven, murky and lawful, loathed by the very gods. There is the yawning mouth of hell, and if a man should find himself inside the gates, he would not reach the bottom for a year. Gust after savage gust would carry him now here, now there. Even the deathless gods find this an awesome mystery. Here, too, is found the fearsome home of dismal night, hidden in dark blue clouds. Before her house, the son of Iapetus, unshakable, holds up broad heaven with his head and hands untiring in the place where night and day approach and greet each other as they cross the great bronze threshold. When one goes in, the other leaves. Never are both at home, but always one outside crosses the earth, the other waits at home until her hour for journeying arrives. The one brings light all-seeing to the earth, but deadly night. The other, hidden in dark clouds, brings sleep, brother of death, and carries him in her arms. There live the children of dark night, dread God, sleep, and his brother death. The shining sun has never looked upon them with his rays, not going up to heaven nor coming back. The one of them is kind to men and goes peacefully over the earth and sees broad back. The other's heart is iron, in his breast is pitiless bronze. If he should touch a man, that man is his. And even to the gods who are immortal, death is an enemy. There, further on, the echoing mansion stands of mighty Hades, god of the lower world, and feared Persephone. A monstrous dog stands pitiless guard in front with evil ways. He wags his tail in both his ears for all who enter, but he will not let them go. Lying in wait, he eats up anyone he catches, leaving by the gates of strong Hades and greatly feared Persephone. There lives the goddess hated by the gods, terrible Styx, the daughter oldest born of Ocean, who flows back upon himself. Far from the gods she has her famous home, roofed over with great rocks, and all around fixed firm with silver pillars reaching up to heaven. Seldom does swift Iris come, daughter of Thamas, over the seas broad to bring a message. But sometimes, when fights and quarreling arises among the gods, and one of the gods who have their homes in Mount Olympus tells a lie, then Zeus sends Iris with a golden jug to fetch the sacred stuff by which the gods swear an oath, the famous chilly water which flows down from the high precipice. Through the black night, far under broad-pathed earth, from the holy stream a branch of ocean flows. 1/10 of him is given to her. Winding about the earth and broad back of the sea, he has 9 streams with silver eddies, and he falls again into the salty main. Only this one flows from a rock, great burden to the gods. For if one of the gods who hold the peak of snowy Mount Olympus swears an oath and makes libation falsely, he must lie unbreathing for the period of a year. No nectar or ambrosia can be his. He lies without a breath, without a voice, covered in bed, hidden in evil trance. But when his long year of disease is done, another harder trial waits for him. The gods who are forever shut him out 9 years. He never joins their banqueting or councils 9 full years. But in the 10th he enters the assembly of the gods immortal who possess Olympian homes. Such is the oath the gods have fixed to swear on the primeval water of the Styx, which never fails but leaps out from the rocks. And there in order are the ends and springs of gloomy earth and misty Tartarus, and of the barren sea and starry heaven, murky and awful, loathed by the very gods. There are shining gates, the threshold bronze unshakable, whose roots are infinite, forever fixed, for bronze grows in that place. And further on, apart from all the gods, the Titans live out beyond chaos's gloom. The famous allies of wide thundering Zeus, Kotos, and Gaius have their dwelling place at ocean's source. But brave Briareus was made the son-in-law of him who roars deeply, the shaker of the earth. He gave his daughter Sympholia to be his bride. After Zeus drove the Titans out of heaven, vast earth loved Tartarus and bore a child, her last through golden Aphrodite's work. Typhoeus, mighty god, whose hands were strong and feet untiring. On his shoulders grew 100 snaky heads, strange dragon heads with black tongues darting out. His eyes flashed fire beneath the brows upon those heads, and fire blazed out from every head when he looked around. Astounding voices came from those weird heads, all kinds of voices, sometimes speech which gods would understand, and sometimes bellowings, as of a bull let loose, enraged and proud, sometimes that of a ruthless lion, then sometimes the yelp of puppies, marvelous to hear. And then sometimes he hissed, and all the tall mountains echoed underneath. Surely that day a thing beyond all help might have occurred. He might have come to rule over the gods and mortal man, had not the Father of gods and men been quick to see the danger. But he thundered mightily and fiercely, and the earth rang terribly, broad heaven above the sea, and ocean streams and Tartarus resounded. As the Lord arose, mighty Olympus shook beneath the immortal feet, and earth gave out a groan. The purple sea was seized by heat from both, from thunder and from lightning and from fire that monster bore. the burning hurricane and blazing thunderbolt. The whole earth boiled, and heaven and the sea, the great waves raged along the shore of the immortals' charge, and endless quakes arose. Hades, the lord of dead men, down below, trembled for fear, and the Titans, they who live with Kronos down under Tartarus, shook at the endless din and fearful battle. Zeus raised up his strength, seizing his arms, lightning the blazing bolt, and thunder leapt down from Olympus, struck, and burred the dreadful monster's ghastly heads. He lashed him with a whip and mastered him, and threw him down all maimed, and great earth groaned. A flame leapt from the lightning-blasted lord when he was struck on the jagged mountainside. Great earth was widely scorched by that awful blast, and melted as tin melts when skillfully man heats it in its hollow crucibles of iron, which is strongest of all things, but can be conquered by the blazing fire in mountains hollow in the earth, the holy earth, and melts under Hephaestus's clever hands. Thus earth was melted in the fire's bright flash, and angry in his heart, Zeus hurled him down to Tartarus. And from Typhus come the fierce rain-blowing winds, not Boreas or Notos or bright Zephyrus, for these came from the gods, and they refresh mankind. But others, reckless gusts blow on the earth. Some fall upon the misty sea and bring calamity to men. As evil storms they rage, each blows in season, scattering ships and killing sailors. Men who meet with them at sea have no defense against their power. And sometimes over the vast and blooming earth they blast the lovely fields of earth-born men and fill the land with dust and dreadful noise. But when the blessed gods had done their work and forcibly put down the Titans' claim to honor, they fulfilled earth's plans and urged far-seeing Zeus, Olympian, to rule and be the king of the immortals. Thus he gave out rank and privilege to each. Now Zeus, king of the gods, first took to wife Metis, wisest of all of gods and men. But when she was about to bear her child, the great-eyed Athena, he deceived her mind with clever words and guile, and thrust her down into his belly as he was advised by earth and starry heaven. In that way, they said, no other god than Zeus would get the royal power over all the gods who live forever. For her fate would be to bear outstanding children greatly wise. First, a girl, Theogony, the grey-eyed, equal in spirit and intelligence to Zeus her father. Then she would bear a son with haughty heart, a king of gods and men. But Zeus, forestalling danger, put her down into his belly, so that the goddess could counsel him in both good and evil plans. And shining Themis, his second wife, and bore the Horai, order, blooming peace, and justice, who attended the works of men. And then the Fates, to whom wise Zeus has paid the greatest honor, Clotho, Atropos, Lachesis, whom men give all good and bad. The daughter of Ocean, fair Eurynome, next bore to him 3 daughters, the fair-cheeked Graces, Aglaia, and Euphrosyne, and lovely Thalia. From their glancing eyes flowed love that melts the strength of a man's limbs. Their gaze beneath their brows is beautiful. Demeter, who feeds all, came to the bed of Zeus and bore white-armed Persephone, whom Adonais stole away from her, but Zeus the counselor approved the match. Again he loved fair-haired Mnemosyne, who bore the Muses, golden-crowned, the 9, whose pleasure is in feasting and sweet song. And Leto joined in love with Zeus, who holds the aegis, and the offspring which she bore were lovelier than all the sons of heaven, Apollo and the huntress Artemis. Last he took blooming Hera for his wife. Uniting with the king of gods and men, she gave him Hebe and Ares, and she bore the goddess Eileithyia to her mate. But Zeus himself produced from his own head grey-eyed Athene, fearsome queen who brings the noise of war and tireless leads the host, she who loves shouts and battling and fights. Then Hera, angry, quarreled with her mate and bore, without the act of love, a son Hephaestus, famous for his workmanship, more skilled in crafts than all the sons of heaven. Amphitrite, and he who shakes the earth, the crashing god, produced a mighty son, wide-ruling Triton, he who holds the deep, a fearsome god who lives in golden house, beside his mother and the Lord his father, and to Ares, who pierces shields, Cytherea bore terror and fear, dread gods who come with Ares, sacker of towns, and spread confusion in the close-packed ranks of men and numbering war. Then Cytherea bore Harmonia, bold-hearted Cadmus's wife, and Maia, daughter of Atlas, came to Zeus and to his holy bed, and bore to him glorious Hermes, herald of the gods. Semele, Cadmus's daughter, lay with Zeus and bore to him a brilliant son, a god, glad Dionysius, mortal though she was, and now they both have joined the ranks of gods. Alcmene, lying in love with Zeus, who drives the clouds, gave birth to Heracles the strong. The famous limping god Hephaestus made Aglaea, youngest Grace, his blooming wife. And golden Dionysius took to wife the fair-haired Ariadne, Minos' child. The son of Cronos saved her from death and age. And then strong Heracles, the glorious son of trim-ankled Alcmene, at the end of all his painful labors, made his bride Hebe, the modest child of mighty Zeus, and golden-slippered Hera on snow-clad Olympus. Happy God, for he has done his great work, and he lives among the gods, forever young, forever free from pain. The famous daughter of ocean Perseus bore to her mate untiring Helios, Circe, and King Aeacus. He, the son of Helios, who brings light to mortal men, was married to Edea, the fair-cheeked daughter of Ocean, Earth's last stream, by will of the immortals, and subdued by love through golden Aphrodite's work, she bore to him Medea with the graceful feet. And now farewell, Olympians, and you islands and continents and salty sea. Now sing, Olympian muses, daughters of Zeus, who hold the aegis. Sing the company of goddesses who lay with mortal men, and bore them children who were like the gods. Demeter, shining goddess, joined in love with Iasion, the hero, on the rich island of Crete. They lay on fallow land which had been plowed 3 times, and she gave birth to Plutos, splendid god who travels far over the land and on the sea's broad back. And everyone who meets him or touches him grows wealthy, for great riches come from him. To Cadmus, golden Aphrodite's child, Harmonia, was married, and she bore Ino and Semele, and the fair-cheeked Agave and Autonoi, the wife of Aristeus, and with the flowing hair, and Polydorus in high-towered Thebes. Calero, the daughter of Ocean, joined in golden Aphrodite's love with strong Chrysore, and she bore his son to him, strongest of mortals Geranes, he whom mighty Heracles subdued and killed to avenge his cattle with their shuffling feet on Erythea, circled by the sea. And to Tithonus Eos bore 2 sons, Memnon, the king of Ethiopia, bronze-helmeted, and Lord Emathion. To Cephalos she bore a brilliant son, strong Python, a man much like the gods. When he was young and had the fragile bloom of glorious youth and tender childish mind, the daughter-loving Aphrodite seized and took him to her shrine and made him serve as a temple keeper, bright divinity. And by the will of the immortal gods, the son of Aeson took Aeacus' child from her father, King Aeacus, loved by Zeus. The great king, overbearing Peleus, outraged, proud, and vicious, ordered him, the son of Aeson, to accomplish tasks, great, painful labors, but he finished them, and having labored long, the job complete, he came to Iolcus in his speedy ship and made the bright-eyed girl his blooming wife. Subdued by Jason, shepherd of the folk, she bore Medeus, and the boy was raised by Chiron, son of Philyra, in the hills, and so the will of great Zeus was fulfilled. A daughter of the old man of the sea, Samathe, shining goddess, through the work of golden Aphrodite, fell in love with Achaeus, and Phocus was her child. And Thetis, another child of Nereus, the silver-slippered goddess, was subdued by Peleus and bore a son to him, lion-hearted Achilles, breaker of men. And fair-crowned Cytherea felt sweet love for the hero Anchises, and she lay with him and bore Aeneas on the mountain-top in Ida with his many wooded clefts. And Circe, daughter of Helios, the son of Hyperion, loved Odysseus, patient-souled, and bore great good Latinus and Agrius, and they, in the midst of holy islands, ruled the famed Thersineans so far away. Calypso, shining goddess, felt sweet love for Odysseus, and lay with him, and bore him Nausithous and Alcinoos, 2 sons. These are the goddesses who lay with men, and bore them children, who were like the gods. Now sing of women, muses, you sweet-voiced Olympian daughters of Aegis-bearing Zeus. Such was the epic poem of Hesiod. The Theogony is the birth of the creation narrative of ancient Greeks. And just very quickly, and we'll run through a couple of things that we read in that great masterful work. The first is, of course, the order of creation that the Greeks understood and believed. You started off with the creation of from chaos. Everything was chaos. Then there was night, and that led to a creation of earth and sky, Gaia and Uranos. And from Uranos and Gaia's relationship, the Titans were born. The Titans, of which Kronos became the king because he gelded Uranos as he was sleeping with Gaia, trying to effectively rape her. And he was gelded by Kronos, and in his pain and horror at what had happened, he swore an oath against Kronos, saying that your son will defeat you. And that child, of course, ultimately became Zeus. Fearing this prophecy, it is clear that Kronos married Rhea, but would not allow the children of Rhea to grow up. So he swallowed 5 of the children, swallowing them whole. They continued to grow inside him. And then eventually, Rhea, frustrated and angered by this behavior, hid Zeus and fed instead a boulder to Kronos, and fashioned an adamantine scythe, which she gave, or sickle, which she gave to Zeus. And as happened to his own father, Kronos was attacked whilst he was with Rhea, and the stomach was opened, or in some way he was forced to vomit up or to produce forth the children he had swallowed, and who were therefore growing. And because Zeus was the great hero and defender of his siblings, he is made and becomes king of the gods, and he apportions the lots of the gods to themselves. So Poseidon and Hades get the 2 main choice fruits of the remaining realms over which they can reign, and Poseidon becomes king of or god of the sea, and Hades becomes god of the underworld. But that doesn't really matter until death hits mankind later on, the created mankind, which we haven't really covered. The other great narrative we talked about, and there were lots of names in there as the gods began producing and populating, and there's a lot of rape and incestuous relationships and homosexual and heterosexual relationships, and it's all very, very confusing. But the other great story is the story of Prometheus. And Prometheus is a Titan who befriends Zeus, and they become very, very close friends. And actually, they create mankind together, along with the other gods and goddesses. And this great moment in the narrative is when Prometheus sneaks into Hephaestus's cavern, where Hephaestus works his bronze to create the weaponry and these great, wonderful bronze artifacts and gifts for the other gods. Prometheus sneaks in and steals on a reed flame. Now, this flame is interesting. It could be just plain fire, or it could be the flame of creativity, the flame of passion and of zeal that the gods have been hiding from mankind. Whatever it is, Prometheus, because he loves his creation, he loves the humanoid things he's created, he steals it from Hephaestus and brings it to mankind, and that begins a warfare or a hatred and punishment between Zeus and Prometheus, where ultimately Prometheus is bound, partly for that, partly for his tricking the god over the choice spoils of a meal. Of a sacrifice of the meat and the marbling and the meat and all of that. And ultimately he's tied to a rock, and every day an eagle comes and eats his liver, enough of the liver so that the next day it grows back overnight, and he comes and he just perpetually experiences this trauma, this violence, as punishment for his acts against Zeus for mankind. And so in the Greek narrative, really the hero of mankind is actually Prometheus. The great god tried to stop this development of humans' expression, because ultimately what would happen, and what was prophesied to Zeus, was when mankind gets humanity gets power and gets the power of this progression and this progressiveness, they'll no longer need the Greek gods. They will become almost independent, and indeed that's what happened in Greece, right? So that's the big story, and then it climaxes as gods begin to sleep with humans, and we talked about, and Hesiod explains some of the relationships and some of the great demigods and the great heroes who came from that, like Heracles, for example, or we might know him as Hercules. So this is one of the great narratives. One of the difficult things in talking about the ancient Greek myths is understanding the way in which the gods function. So there are different types of gods. So, for example, Zeus is a god who is himself. He is the king of heaven. He's not a personification of anything. But the earlier deities, the first generation of deities, appear to be personifications of things. So you have Nyx or Night, who's a personification of night. You have Chaos. You have Gaia, who is the earth in some form, who is the earth, and yet also seems to have the opportunity or the ability to personify or to become in some form or shape by which that heaven and earth can procreate to create the Titans, for example. So there's a very unusual, very difficult conversation happening in classical academic culture as to what that actually looked like, what the Greeks understood that to look like. It's not really decided. I don't think it ever will be decided. I don't think the Greeks themselves actually knew what it meant. It's difficult to kind of comprehend how these things happen because you have the personification of the entire planet, and then you have very human aspects, attributes, natures given to these divine beings in such a way as to almost make them seem human. And that's one of the things that I think we find most significant about the Greek and Norse pantheons of gods, is that they're very human in the way they behave. They're very human in the things they decide to do. They're very human in the consequences of their actions. Unlike, for example, the Egyptian gods, who seem to be significantly more distinct and separate, and the Egyptian theology is significantly more advanced in terms of philosophy and worldview than the Greek and Nordic traditions. Nevertheless, there is something very, very familiar and honestly enjoyable about the Greek myths. Particularly, this one is probably my favorite Greek myth outside the Iliad itself. The only other thing to mention is that because of the supernatural divine nature, not all the gods need to procreate in the same way. So one of the things you saw is, for example, the chthonic births, or which means out of the earth, or it just means natural births, or unnatural births, or not the natural way we think of with the womb and with sexual intercourse. The chthonic births are other ways. So, for example, there are children born to Uranos that do not involve sexual intercourse. There are children born to Gaia that don't have any relationship. We read Hesiod saying that there was children born when the mother knew no love, or not born from natural love. There's also, of course, Aphrodite, the great goddess of love, who was born from the great violent gelding of Uranos. So she actually precedes the Olympian gods. She is an Olympian god, but she actually precedes them, and it's from his genitals that foamed around Crete that she then came through and was born that way. So that is the narrative that we have from the Theogony. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please feel free to go onto the blog on timkdunn.com and read the blog there, and we'll go into some of those conversations in greater depth about the Theogony in due course. But if you have any questions or comments, please do feel free to go onto the blog and leave some feedback there. Have a great day.